Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eli, back with another review video. And yes, happy Star Wars Day to all of you. May the 4th be with you. That's right, you read the title of this review. I'm of course reviewing, and since this year marks its anniversary, I'm reviewing Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, the theatrical version. And two things I'd like to point out quickly. One, I know that me and my dad, we reviewed Return of the Jedi, but, I don't know, because I just thought, why not kind of re-review this? Not legitimately re-review this. This isn't a re-review on Return of the Jedi. I'm basically reviewing the theatrical version, like the original release of Return of the Jedi that everybody saw when it came out in 1983, okay? But of course, with mentionings of its updates and so on, And two, speaking of my dad, I know that in the last review, I stated that both me and him would be reviewing something Star Wars, and which being Return of the Jedi. Sadly, he wishes that he could have been here to review Return of the Jedi, but he was unable to attend, and yeah, he encouraged me to, carry on, so that's what I'm doing. But anyways, so with Return of the Jedi, well, this was, as everybody considers, the true grand finale of the Skywalker saga. How many people, and say what you will about the sequel trilogy, but, yeah, because so much that happens in Return of the Jedi, this was the third and final chapter of the original trilogy, the defeat of Darth Vader, and seeing the Emperor himself, and the second Death Star, and a big battle, at the planet of Endor. Just so much happening. And, I'll go ahead and, read the story, of course. Luke Skywalker battles horrible Jabba the Hutt and cruel Darth Vader to save his comrades in the Rebel Alliance and triumph over the Galactic Empire. Han Solo and Princess Leia reaffirm their love and team with Chewbacca, Lando Calrissian, the Ewoks, and the droids. It says androids, but droids. The droids, C-3PO and R2-D2, to aid in the disruption, of the dark side and the defeat of the evil Emperor. It's like, I can imagine, and especially what my dad experienced, when seeing Return of the Jedi, because, obviously the fans, they just, went nuts on everything that was happening, everything that was kept top secret when making this film, and in the script. I can imagine. And I know the same goes for, when the sequel films happened, just saying. Nobody had expected on what would happen, and obviously, previously in Empire Strikes Back, the big reveal of Vader being Luke's father, and what would happen in this? Well, for one thing, because we find out that, Princess Leia is Luke's sister, she's been his sister the whole time, and, with Obi-Wan telling Luke that, to keep them hidden from the Emperor and keep them anonymous and so on, and another thing is, my experience with watching Return of the Jedi, well, I actually watched it before its updates in the early 2000s when, say, Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith came out. Before Hayden Christensen, I will say that. I remember, when Sebastian Shaw was still Anakin Skywalker appearing at the end of the movie, and I'm pretty sure because, he still had those, big eyebrows, you know? But I think that they should have realized that how can his eyebrows have survived that, you know? Unless they grew back. I mean, seriously, you know, with what happened to him in Revenge of the Sith, the amount of burning on him, I tell you, just, you know. um, and, uh, and also, yeah, with the 1997 release, like, yeah, because, you know, they had changed, say, you know, the Celebration song, you know, because I guess for a lot of people, especially my parents, they did not like the original with the yup, nah, hija, yup, yeah. I can understand, but I don't know. I don't mind. I think it's fine. I have seen some people like say some good things about the original like Celebration song. But it's understandable with the new like Celebration song. You know, it's peaceful and it's not loud or anything like that, you know, and it fits very well. Even my dad told me this, that George Lucas wanted to have like a new piece of a Celebration song that not only is peaceful and such, but it matches with, you know, everybody celebrating and the dancing and so on. And yeah, they succeeded. They did a pretty good job with that. And also, because, you know, with everybody in the galaxy celebrating that the Empire is defeated, like in the 1997 version, you know, it was Cloud City. Supposedly it's... I think, yeah, it is Tatooine, but it could be Mos Eisley. Even my dad is guessing that, you know, probably is. And Coruscant, but in the later release in 2004, you know, in addition, we have Naboo, so makes sense. Okay, and there were a couple of stories that, if my dad were here, he would tell them, but I'll, you know, on his behalf, I will tell them. His experience seeing Return of the Jedi, well, he remembers when him and a couple of his friends, they were out in line, you know, waiting to go see Return of the Jedi, and he can hear the audience roaring in the theater because of Return of the Jedi. And I think, yeah, right after that, his friends, they pulled a joke on him, and it is pretty funny that, basically, they told my dad that because my dad's friends had already seen Return of the Jedi, and, you know, they wanted to go see it again, and thus, you know, they went to see it with my dad, so there you go. They told him that at the end of Return of the Jedi, Luke Skywalker wakes up, and basically he dreamt the whole thing. He dreamt the entire trilogy, and of course that got my dad upset, and of course they laughed, and, like, they got him, so... That's pretty funny, don't you think? A bit mean. I mean, for somebody who really loves Star Wars, you know. But, anyways, and, you know, even say another story from my dad is that, you know, he wanted to see it again, and, you know, he wanted to bring some friends along, and it was like, you know, a date, I guess you could say, date night, whatever, double date, whatever, you get the point, you know, and none of them, like, the people that he wanted to bring to see Return of the Jedi, they weren't, if I remember correctly, they weren't really into Star Wars. And my dad told them that he would pay their tickets, their beverages, etc., and they came along. So, yeah. But there's that. Like, those are the stories from my dad and that I share with you. So, but more on Return of the Jedi. You know, because other things from its theatrical release, like, you know, I don't know, like, how people feel about, say, the Jedi Rock song, you know, that Cy Snoodle sings, like, you know, I mean, if I remember correctly, George Lucas, he wanted a big song number, you know, for Cy Snoodles, and with that, you know, that song that she's singing, yeah, and my dad, he calls the Max Rebo Band like a group of Star Wars Muppets, but they're not Muppets, and neither is Yoda, okay? But that's what he calls them. Just, you know, bear with him. I mean, you know, they could have kept the original song number that Cy Snoodles was singing, you know, but they could have, like, easily swapped the puppet version of Cy Snoodles with the CG Cy Snoodles, if they wanted to, but, you know, it's what George Lucas wanted. Again, he wanted a big song number. I'm sure it's obvious that the song number that was in the original release, like, it's not what George had in mind. So that's understandable. And also, like, the Sarlacc pit, like, yeah, how it originally looked, there was no beak, it was just like a hole, like, you just go down and, like, you just be digested or something like that. But in, like, say, the later releases, it had a beak and so on, which, I don't know, I mean, I'm not complaining, and I don't know if anybody really complained about that. Did anybody? I don't know, I mean, it seems fine to me, with the beak and such. And besides, what would happen next with the Sarlacc pit in the Book of Boba Fett? So, yeah. Yeah, another thing is that, some, some scenes that were added and not, an extended, a little bit of an extended scene where, they're traveling their way to the Sarlacc pit, and you see those herd of banthas. Like, that was a fine addition. And also, about Yoda, because, there are, it actually is on YouTube. I've seen it, an extended cut of Yoda and Luke, Yoda on his deathbed, and, we hear a lot more of Yoda, like, the part where Luke is like, unfortunate that I know the truth, and, Yoda's like, saying, unfortunate, like, that incomplete was in your training, that not ready for the burden were you, and he's saying, Obi-Wan would have told you long ago, I remember, from what I've heard, like, people say that totally changes that whole, something like that, I don't know, I don't know how to put it to words, but, bear with me. And also, like, I want to, like, quickly mention about the deleted scenes, like, it's amazing, like, there, it's, like, you wish that they would have kept some deleted scenes, some pretty good ones. Like, in the opening to Return of the Jedi, we see, Vader, like, after he arrives at the second Death Star, and he's in his chamber, like, reaching out to Luke, and we see Luke, he's, constructing his lightsaber, and, 3PO and R2, they make their way to Jabba's palace, and after that, like, after Jabba is defeated, all of them make their way back to the Millennium Falcon and Luke's X-Wing, and a sandstorm happens. That was pretty good. And there was, like, some extended scenes of, say, that commander on the second Death Star, Vader, this is an unexpected pleasure. We're honored by your presence. Like, yeah, we get more scenes with him, and also scenes that happen during the Battle of Endor, with what's going on in the X-Wing, and some, like, rebel fighter pilots, and one of them being a calamari. Yeah, some pretty good scenes. And also, because with the Ewoks, I mean, I will mention this, like, in the original release, they didn't blink, but in a very later release of it, like in 2012, yeah, their eyes blinked, which, yeah, that was a pretty good addition. It made sense, like, at least, like, they should blink their eyes. But yeah, and the stuff with Emperor Palpatine is fantastic, and moments between Vader or Luke are really great, because, Luke finally, like, redeems his father, and, and finally brings Anakin Skywalker back, no more Vader, Luke has been the only one that can, save his father, from being Darth Vader, hiding behind the mask of Vader, that is, like, makes sense. And, the chemistry between Han and Leia, and Luke and Leia, and when Leia realizes that, that she is Luke's sister, and, and obviously she realizes that Vader is her father. Yeah, so, and again, because the whole Battle of Endor is fantastic, from what's happening on the surface into space. Just, great stuff. Really, at that point, Lucasfilm and George Lucas had a really good budget. You know what I'm saying? They did a lot more in this for sure. More creatures, more, like, the ships, fighting each other in space, and just everything to it, I'm telling you. And especially, like, the climax where, Palpatine, like, he's wanting Luke to turn to the dark side and take his father's place. And that great dialogue that Luke has, never, I'll never turn to the dark side. You failed, Your Highness. I'm a Jedi, like my father before me. Just great. And Palpatine, all he can say is, so be it, Jedi. And the lightning force, like that he strikes on Luke, and then Vader, now back to Anakin, snapping out of it, and just like now Anakin is back, and he defeats the Emperor once and for all, and Anakin brought balance back to the Force. And seeing, Vader unmasked and being played by the late Sebastian Shaw, fantastic, and again, good thing that they removed the eyebrows, and especially because, you just see that sweet look on his face, and what he was behind the mask, you name it. And the destruction of the second Death Star, just fantastic, and especially when the Millennium Falcon gets out of there and Lando's like, yeah! And the Num, that's his name, yeah. That's great. And that explosion, like, the original release, there was no, like ring, that effect, but, the later releases, it was added, and just like how it was added in A New Hope, which was a perfect addition, so it made sense, actually, yeah. Not only that, but when Yavin was destroyed, so yeah. And, Leia telling Han that, that Luke is Leia's brother, and Han just a bit shocked, and God, many people have made this joke that Han is thinking back at what happened in Empire Strikes Back. Leia kissing her own brother. And again, the celebration, pretty good. I'd say from the original to the newer version. So yeah. And, Sebastian Shaw, like his original appearance, but being replaced with Hayden Christensen, it doesn't bother me. You know what? It makes sense because that's how Anakin was, before he turned into Darth Vader and before he got burned. You get my point. So yeah. And another thing is, the score and music by the one and only John Williams. Well, it's John Williams. It's fantastic. So that's all I need to say. And something else about Jabba the Hutt that I forgot to mention. All that talk, like, when the original trilogy was released from 1977 to 1980 to 1983, the mentionings of Jabba the Hutt and how Jabba was almost this close to appearing in A New Hope, which unfortunately he never made it to appearing in A New Hope. Finally, everybody getting to see what Jabba looks like in the third and final installment. Probably it was exciting for them, to see this, like, giant practical, hut, this giant, like, slug, pretty cool. So I can imagine. And I can't forget to mention, like, say, the Rancor sequence, like, pretty good too. And that was, all puppet. So, and another thing is, like, some of the stop motion puppetry for, say, the walkers on Endor, pretty good too. So yeah. And Chewie and the two Ewoks hijacking a walker, pretty funny, and it makes sense. Like, it helps out defeating the Empire on the surface. And also, like, moments between R2 and 3PO, funny, because they're both funny droids. But yeah. But with all that being said, Return of the Jedi, what a fantastic Star Wars film this is. And for it being the third and final installment in the original trilogy. And again, as I said, many people considering it being the true grand finale of the Skywalker saga. And I respect and understand their opinion, And again, say what you will about the sequel trilogy. I understand. So yeah. And definitely, Return of the Jedi, it gets a 10 out of 10. So, and yeah, with this being, because I know, like, with this being, like, in the title of the review, like, theatrical version, yes, but, I've talked more about Return of the Jedi and its, updates and so on, so it's fine, But again, The story, the characters, the action, adventure, the music, its funny moments and its emotional moments, everything to it, just fantastic. What a fantastic Star Wars film this is, and for it being the third and final installment of the original trilogy. And what about you guys? What do you think of Return of the Jedi itself? And if any of you had seen this film before its updates, and what did you think of my review? Leave comments and give this review a like as always. So, with all that being said, thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed my review of Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, its theatrical version, and with its updates, etc. More reviews coming your way. They're going to be awesome. Keep looking forward, and I'll see you guys in the next video/review. Take care. Peace out. May the Force be with you. May the Fourth be with you. Happy anniversary to Return of the Jedi, and happy Star Wars Day.